Welcome to NavTalk Series 3, brought to you by the NavWealth Financial Group. Have you ever wondered what it's like to run a successful business? Business in the Spotlight will bring you interviews with successful business owners to educate, inform and inspire. Welcome. Today I have the great fortune of interviewing one Jason Howitt. And Jason is the recent owner of a business called Manshed Options. Hi there, Jason.
G'day, Simon. How's it going?
That's good, mate. Thank you. Thank you for having me today. And looking around this warehouse here, it's pretty amazing. I'm seeing scooters, I'm seeing cars, I'm seeing rail paraphernalia, I'm seeing army paraphernalia, I'm seeing planes, I'm seeing motorbikes, petrol bowsers, signage. It's pretty amazing what you've got in this place. Tell me a little bit about Manshed Options and what it is that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks. Manshed Auctions, we consign and sell items, which I'd sort of best describe as the type of thing you'd see on American Pickers. So if you've got a man shed at home or a garage or a display area, blokes often like to put stuff in it like the stuff that Simon just described. We sometimes say it's garagenalia or petronalia. So we have lots of petrol items. We have cool things that a bloke might have enjoyed when they were a kid, but now they've got more of them as an adult, like pretty cool model planes and pinball machines and pedal cars and enamel signs and pretty cool old boxes and motorcycles and Harley Davidsons. We sell all that sort of stuff. So if a guy wants to find some really, really cool stuff, or if they want to sell it, many people in New South Wales and further afield bring the stuff here, and they also come here to buy stuff. Most of that's done online, but many people come in to check the stuff out as well before they bid for it.
So it's a real classic one man's trash is another man's treasure, if you like. This is probably, if I'm looking around, this is, and I'm going to be frank, probably hoarded material that people have had for many, many years hiding around their house, and they've decided to move house or do the big clean up and they go, well, this has got a value, I should sell it. Is that a fair call?
I'd like to counter a little bit on that. Some of this stuff, guys that collect things, there's lots of different categories. One category would be a guy that has a man shed and it's full of these items. Could be a really cool office, and they've got too much of it and they want to clear out some of their stuff. But we also have guys that have just got so much stuff in their house that their wives crack it and they say, get rid of it, it's got to go. So they clear stuff out. Another category of customers here is estate sales, where the person that's passed may have a fantastic collection of items and then the family needs to realize the money. So there's kind of lots of different categories of customers we have here.
Now, you've been very gender specific in your discussions here. It's the man shed, and you're talking he's and men a lot. Do you also get ladies who are doing the same sort of thing, or is it because of your marketing and the way you present yourself, it's more men's paraphernalia?
Yeah, I got to sort of be careful how I answer that. So the business was founded by the previous owner, Mr. Keith Levy, great top guy, in 2017. And it is called Manshed because it's kind of descriptive of the type of items that blokes are interested in. And I must say, when I started learning the ropes here in January, there's just a dearth of women here. Women don't come in the door. If they do come here, it's to pull their husbands outside to leave. And since January, without exaggeration, I've met no more than 5 ladies that are interested in this category of items. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, it might have something to do with the general items, and I must say that it is, looking around, it's probably more male specific in those items, and really the ladies probably have a different marketplace for their ladies shed items.
Yeah. So I will say, I'll just add the caveat that the lady customers that we do have here, they're just as knowledgeable and enthusiastic as the blokes are. However, they would be literally 1% or less of our client base, literally 1% or less. They're just not into it. So No, no. So about 3 or 4 months ago, an existing client had a bunch of porcelain, like cups and saucers and Toby jugs and all that sort of stuff. And the previous owner did do an auction of those items, and it was a disaster. So the prices realized were less than market value, and there was a lot of items that were sold in. So what that taught me when I was here learning the ropes from the previous owner is to keep to our swimming lane. Don't try and diversify outside what our customer base expects. And what they expect is really, really cool items, quality items that people would be happy to purchase and put in their man cave, in their office to look cool, or maybe in a room in their house or out in the yard, like items that blokes really like.
I'm looking at your client base and your business. It is geared towards these specific products. You don't sort of open the door to anything to sell. So driving customer expectations, I dare say you're looking at subscriber base because it's an online option and you have people following you, would typically be a male. So that's pretty well how you've identified the niches in the man-set business, or have you established a niche the way you operate?
Well, again, that was set up by the previous vendor, but we sell stuff in the American pickers category. We're certainly the largest in rail in Australia, selling rail collectible items, and we're very strong in petrol and regular garage in the man shed category. So we pretty much stick to that. We've got a Facebook following of approaching 17,000 now, and they are actively engaged with us. We do regular posts to show new stuff coming in. And one thing we're actually going to introduce to build our community even more is we're going to start doing video, audio interviews with people that have got really, really good stuff. And that's going to be a way to showcase some collections of our customer base, but we're also going to do an educational component to it as well. For example, in the railway, there's a lot to learn, and we're always learning in this business, and we'd like to educate our fellow collectors and customers in certain aspects, but also have it as a forum where people can share their cool collections as well.
Of that 17,000 customer base you mentioned,
that's just Facebook. Yeah. Yeah.
Are they professionals in this game, or have you got as diverse as the day is long in terms of followers? Are they individuals? Are they companies? Are they antique brokers? What's the typical customer?
So if I were to sort of break down the customer base again, or specific to your question about Facebook, they're just guys that are interested in the product category. Most of them are customers, both as vendors to bring items here to sell, and also their purchasers. But one thing that's very strong in this, let's call it sort of American picker style category, is our customer base not only look to sell through and buy from us, but they also sell through and buy from our competitors who are, in other cities and other states as well. Some are quite similar to the product range that we have here as well. And then when a customer, either a seller or a buyer, buyers are kind of pretty agnostic when it comes to where they'll buy from, but vendors are very specific that what I have observed, relationship is important for them as well, that they feel that their items are being well represented, that they get along well with the auction house, and that they're just not another number. So we try and provide, we do provide just as a natural extension of the people that work here. We try and do the best we can and really cherish and represent well the products that come in the door.
Okay. So let's go through that process. I've got my cave and I've gone through it. My wife's asked me to clean it out, or I'm moving house.
Or you might need some money.
Or I might need some money, fair enough. And I've got a heap of items. What do? Do I rock up here? How's it work?
Yeah, so we have got a company where we've got quite powerful, I think the term is search engine optimization. So if somebody puts in certain buzzwords into the internet, will pop up, and that generates a lot of organic leads through the internet. So someone might call up that way, or somebody might call up because they've been referred by an existing client of ours, or it could be a client of ours calling us up directly. So normally there's 3 ways that can occur. We'll receive an email or a Facebook request, or sometimes, usually the most common way, someone will just give us a call. So we get the call, we have a bit of a chit chat, and then I try and ascertain if it's something specific to our category. And if it's something specific to our category, then the next question will be if the person can give us a heads up on some of the particular items that they think is really, really cool. And if it's something that is worthwhile that we feel our customer base will want, then I either go out there if it's a really valuable collection, like 10 or 20 grand or more. If it's a very, very low value collection, we then encourage the person, or sometimes it's a couple of people, to bring those items physically here, or send us a bunch of photos. We get a lot of people who, and I say this very delicately, they think their items are really, really cool, but they're actually not cool to our particular customer base. And if those items aren't cool to our customer base, I have to very diplomatically provide them or suggest some other places where they might go. Because even though it's not a customer that we can help, we still want to try and help them get an outcome specific for their products, because we don't want to degrade what people have. But what we do want to have is cherry pick what is great for our customer base, what we know our customers want and what they're looking for more of. And we want to try and focus on getting those items. So in a way, we might get 10 calls and maybe half, or let's say we might get 20 calls, and maybe 1 call will have really cool items that actually end up physically here that we can sign. Because we need to be very specific so that when somebody looks at the Manshed auction website, or when they come here, that they know what they're going to get.
So there's a lot of items that you just reject outright. And when you say you know what your customers want, I dare say that's through actual auction, and you're getting a feel for what people are bidding on.
Correct.
They're actually telling you, they're putting in, I'd love you to find me this.
So one thing I learned in the 6 months learning, it's museum quality, and it's items from the 20s and 30s when the Art Deco was all the rage. So what we're doing for that particular gentleman is we've designed a marketing campaign with a 4-month lead in, and we're going to reach out to the collectors of, for example, they're called AWA Empire radios. We're going to reach out to that collector base, and we're going to showcase his collection, and then we're going to auction it for him. The ropes before I took over is Keith is very clued into what are items that guys want in the, let's call it the man shed category. And it's the stuff that you see before you. And that's a pretty much a niche category. So if a guy's got a man shed or a man cave or whatever you want to call it, he might have a pinball machine in there. He might have a jukebox. He might have some pedal cars, some enamel signs, a petrol Bowser, some cool model rail or model planes. He might have a Harley Davidson, an Indian motorcycle. All that sort of stuff is kind of quite specific. Having said that, we have had a number of customers recently reach out to us to sell literally $1 million plus collections of items that's slightly outside of our niche. An example of that is one of our great long-term customers has got a AWA radio collections, probably $500,000. It's museum quality, and it's items from the 20s and 30s when the Art Deco was all the rage. So what we're doing for that particular gentleman is we've designed a marketing campaign with a 4-month lead in, and we're going to reach out to the collectors of, for example, they're called AWA Empire radios. We're going to reach out to that collector base, and we're going to showcase his collection, and then we're going to auction it for him.
A specific auction all about that customer.
That's right, yeah.
They've got so much in that range. Okay.
That's right. So it'll be a single vendor, museum quality AWA radio collection from the height of the Art Deco period. And it will take us 4 months to basically represent his items to the collecting public, both here in Australia and potentially overseas as well. So that's an example where it's slightly separate to our niche, but due to our sales success in the past, that customer has reached out to us and entrusted us with that collection of items.
So your customer comes in with his radio collection.
Yeah.
And he drops it here for the auction.
Yeah.
We might retain it at his place of residence. You can
Yeah.
squeeze it off.
That's right. Yeah.
And then what happens from there?
So the radio collection, that will be photographed in situ where it's currently located. But a regular customer, they will bring the items in and we look at every single piece. And if it's a cool item, then great, thanks for bringing it here. And we write up a consignment note. Oftentimes, even some of the regular customers, we do suggest to them that some of the items in the things that they bring might be better placed elsewhere. And we say that with, respect in our heart and very diplomatically. But we take the items in that we want to sell, which we know our customers will want to buy. We do the consignment note. It sits on the arrival trolley. Then the next step is it goes over to the photo booth. We photograph it, upload it to the next scheduled general auction or next specific auction to that product. And then, it sits up there on the internet.
So as soon as you mentioned auctions, so it's not just you put it up there and it's a single item. You'll have a specific auction for a specific time frame, if you like. How do your auctions work?
So the prior founder, he had 15 auctions in the previous 12 months. About 8 or 9 of those were recurring man-shed collectibles auction. So a man-shed collectibles auction is your pinball machines, your petrol items, your enamel signs, and any really, really cool stuff that is sort of considered our general recurring auction. And then the other 6 or 7 auctions are things like the quarterly rail auction. And the rail auction is very, very specific, only to have rail items typically from New South Wales, the UK, America, or other Australian states. Then we also have motorcycle auctions, which are specifically Harley Davidsons and Indians, Ducatis, and other cool brands like that, Nortons and so forth. An example of a specific auction would be an auction we had in concert with the great guys of American Motorcycle Club Australia branch down in Bulli about 3 weekends ago, where we sold about 300,000 or 400,000 of Harley Davidson Indian motorcycles. And we also had a parts auction consisting of 291 lots, and that was about 70,000. So that was an example of a specific auction that we did with a great bunch of guys in that club. And that was specific to their needs and their customer base.
Specific auctions would be on demand.
Correct. Or we generate them.
And generate.
Yeah.
Your rail auctions you multiple times a year. You do a specific auction all about rail.
Yeah.
Is there any other specific auctions that you run, or is it from there what your sellers are looking to help you help?
Yeah, providing it's in a man-shed category or a similar adjunct, we'll look at it. So we've had some approaches recently to sell several container loads of Olympic memorabilia from the 2000 Olympics. So I'll go and chat with that gentleman, and then I'll also reach out to some of our customers to see if they're interested, and then I'll make a determination if we may be a suitable outlet to best represent that gentleman's products. So that's an example where an existing customer has said, hey, I've got this, what do you reckon? So we're always looking to do single vendor or single categories. An example of a category that we introduced a little bit before I purchased the business was militaria and aviation. And that first auction, we had a clearance rate, I think somewhere just over 95%. It was smaller in dollar value than our regular auctions, but it's certainly a product category that we'll be repeating in the future. I've also got, well, I should say we've also got here in the business several hundred model trains, stationary steam engines, and tin toys. So later this year, we're going to do a specific auction for model trains, stationary steam engines, and tin toys. If you look at sort of the interest of the guys that are interested in those items, there's sort of overlap there. And that's going to be another specific auction as well, just those 3 product types.
Okay. And when you get into the specific auctions, given that a lot of these items you mentioned before, with the radios, they may be museum quality.
Yeah.
Will you find that a lot of plate of purchases will be the museums and the higher end of town that really are building.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, we didn't talk about this before we started the interview, but in some categories, for example, in the rail category, probably somewhere between 20 and 30% of the items are specifically purchased by museums. So I normally refer to them as not-for-profits. So an example is in New South Wales, there are a number of museums that are current and also growing collections, and they're looking for certain items to complete, say, a locomotive. They might be restoring a physical locomotive, and they might be after a builder's plate or some gauges or some signage or paraphernalia associated with that loco. So I'd just like to say thank you very much to those museums, because they're typically recurring customers. They're great to deal with, and they also help us expand our knowledge on the items that we're selling, because they're very passionate. And certainly in the rail, 20 or 30% does find its way to museums.
Okay. And if I'm a museum and I'm saying, okay, man, shit, I want you to go and find me a specific piece.
They do ask. However, we don't know what's coming in the door in the future. So, however, we have had circumstances where we've had a rail auction, for example, earlier this year, and one of the museums needed that piece specifically for that loco. This is an actual example without giving away the specific details. And we made the determination here at Manshed that it would be better for that builder's plate to be reunited with that loco that was being reconstructed at great expense. So we actually pulled that item out of the auction and did a deal where the vendor was able to sell it directly to the museum. And we thought that would be the best outcome for sort of the preservation of that item. But that's a very one-off situation. But yeah, we love dealing with the museums, and we're constantly getting people ringing us up, offering us things to sell, which we know that certain museums will buy it.
And in that case, would it still be an option, or would you just say to the museum, look, we've got a seller here that's got items we know we want, and then you sort of put them together and help broker to do it?
The example that I just gave has only happened twice since my involvement at the start of this year. So it's very, very rare. But museums are looking to expand their collections generally. That has been our experience, certainly from the museums we're dealing with. The next step for us is to find museums that want to start shedding their collections, because I know they are out there. However, it's very, very bureaucratic and time consuming for a museum to dispense with items, because they have got a board and they've also got members. And if they've got to get rid of an item, often in discussion with some of these museums, they've got to reach out to every member and say, is there a reason for us not to sell it? And oftentimes one or two people say, don't sell it. So it is hard for museums to sell things, but we know there are markets, there will be markets in the future where museums want to sell stuff. So.
All right. So I put I brought in my goods, my trash, which is your treasure, and you've catalogued it and photographed it, and it's gone up for auction, and that'll be put up in a lot. And from what I'm seeing, these lots could be an individual item or a group of items, depending on what it is.
Yeah.
And then, if you like, then the auction begins. And there's a cut-off date. So it's a bit like what we would have been used to on eBay or whatever when we're trying to buy second-hand goods. There's a marketplace there. We're putting in an auction or a bid. We can buy it straight away if we hit a certain value, or if we don't hit reserve or whatever, then the auction's open and the cut-off date. Yeah.
So auction platforms are ubiquitous. So what differentiates us? So the differentiation here for us is we only want to have stuff that's specific to our niche, that our customers expect, that in 99% of cases are not reproductions, and that are in great condition. So that provides us an advantage over, say, eBay or any of the other auction platforms for that matter. We have many customers, and I'll look to answer your question more specifically. We have many customers that, for example, have got a bunch of stuff and they've tried eBay or they've tried one of the other auction platforms, but they're disappointed when people don't show up to look or to purchase or to pay them the money at the time that they've said. They've got a lot of people stuffing them around. They get scammers trying to reverse take money out of their bank accounts, yada, yada, yada. We offer a very simple and transparent approach where people bring the items in, or we collect the items. We do all the work. We photograph, we provide a base description as honestly as we can without opinion. We try and stick to the facts. The items get sold and we remit them the funds without having to chase us. So we provide a very, very simple platform where people can sell and where people can buy without basically stuffing around.
Yeah. And because it's specific, people are coming to you because they know you're going to have items of this niche or character when you do the job.
Yeah, literally in that example, I don't know exactly what the figure is, but 20 people will call us, and out of those 20 people, we'll get a portion of one out of those 20 persons' items to sell here. Whereas the model for most of the other auction houses, I'm talking general auction houses, not our specific competitors, but general auction houses, they'll take stuff that's, put out the front from a council collection. Many of them literally do that. So we also don't have hidden fees. We don't have the fees are disclosed, but they're rather onerous to the customer base. So the only fee we charge is the vendor and purchaser's commission, and we also charge a small amount for packing items as well. We don't load for photographing. We don't load for insurance, which is a complete con. We just have a very, very straight pricing model as well for our services.
So let me get that right. For the seller, you've got a fee. So I bring the item in and you say, I'll take a fee for selling that item for you.
That's right.
And you have a fee for the purchaser also.
Correct, yeah.
So you're the marketplace essentially, and without physically changing hands, you're buying something and selling it on the same day, but the auction house sort of creates that marketplace and you're just a little man holding the product, but you're doing all the work for that product, making sure it's working, making sure it's not stolen and it's what they say it is. So you're creating some certainty for purchase.
That's right. We want to really only have good quality items in the product that our customers expect. And in doing so, we provide an outlet for people who have got those types of items to sell them without them having to sit here for months on end.
Yeah. So and deal with the, as you said, the punters and the tire kickers and everything else that comes along when you're trying to sell something privately.
Yeah, that's right. We literally, and I'm looking around now, seeing where they are on the shelves of items that people have tried to sell, for example, in Facebook Marketplace, and they're just done. They just don't want the drama. So they bring it here, and there'll be a subset in that group of items that we know is the man shed category, if I can call it that. And we're happy to represent those products and try and get the sellers the best outcome they can. Yeah.
Now I'm looking specifically in front of me. You've got 3 or 4 or even more pinballs here, and they look pretty old in terms of their makeup, and they're certainly not the modern day. Reminds me of growing up. Those pinball machines are prone to obviously not working and so forth. So how do you sort of vouch for the quality of the product, or are you actually making sure it's fixed or working before it hits the auction sale? Okay.
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. So I'm looking at them now because it's just in front of us. What we have done here at Manshed, and this is something we're going to be doing from now going forward, is we don't really want to sell a machine that's not working unless we specifically market it as a static machine. So the lights might go on, but it might not work. We will list that as a static machine. But what we've been doing lately is we've got a guy coming in and repairing them so they're in working order. So if they buy a pinball here and we say it's in working order, we can actually say, yeah, why don't you speak to this guy or that guy who's just fixed it? Here's a video of it working and here's the overall general condition. So we want people to buy a working pinball machine with a bit of confidence that they can use it.
So you're not offering a warranty, you're just making sure it's in the order it is when they're buying it, so it's actually working.
That's right. But if there's faults or we know that it's going to be prone to another breakdown, we'll list that. So, and we're bringing that across a few product categories now. We want people to basically be able to buy with confidence. If they buy a working pinball, then it'll be this one, or this one. Or if they just want a static display, then it's that one. So, and that's a bit of a differentiator to some, we just want people to know what they're buying, basically.
And would that apply, and I'm looking around at bikes here and billy carts and things like that they're obviously very old and a lot better than the billy carts that we give my collectors. But are you trying to make sure they're working, or is it really, look, this is made in the 1950s, it may work, it may not, and when you buy it, you take on that responsibility? Is that it?
Yeah, so with those particular things up there on the mezzanine level, the pedal cars, we're very proud to have a great relationship with the Pedal Car Club of Australia. And what we do for those great guys is we try and take as many detailed photos from all angles as we can. And if we see that there might be a crack or a chip or the frame might, be missing in a section, we actually take photos of the areas where there is an issue with the product. So in doing so, we allow the purchaser to make their own determination on those, because we're not experts with everything we do. And again, another differentiator, I'm just going to repeat this again. If we're taking photographs of an item and there's a bit that's scratched or is dent or broken, we'll actually take a photo specifically of that area. So that says more than a description that's omitted something. So we try and be very detailed in our photographs to show all aspects of the product. And that's particularly relevant for the pedal cars. So we take front, back, side, then 3/4 angles on the 4 angles, underside, axles, wheels, all that sort of stuff. So the guys can really see exactly the condition and they're not missing out on any aspect of it.
So it's a hell of a lot of cataloguing and compiling of this information.
Photographing mainly, yeah.
And how are you managing all that? Like, that's a fair bit of effort, I dare say, to get an item up.
Well, it's not that hard, but what we are doing is we're actually doing some more lighting on the photo booth there to help us with the different angles. And I'm personally learning a lot as I go along. I've actually reached out to the guys at TED Cameras in the city, and they've been great with some advice. And shortly they'll be coming up here, and the photo booth over there, they'll be providing some products per their suggestion on how to get better lighting. So we're always, certainly since I've taken over, we're trying to take even better photos than what the great photos that Manshed's already known for. I'd like to say on that as well that our customer base, they're very knowledgeable on the items they buy, and we could write a BS description, but nothing speaks as well as detailed photos on all of the angles of the item we're selling. So
you don't write BS descriptions. The photo will tell the word that you need to do in the description, and BS for everyone out there is got to be an excrement that people can have the freedom of writing. So the photos tell the story, right?
Yeah, that's right. And one of the reasons that attracted me to this business is the founder's attitude, where we're not going to BS the customers. We're going to take as many detailed photos as we can, and we're not going to make misrepresentations. So that's created a lot of goodwill in the business, and I'm happy to have inherited that and want to continue and build on that great goodwill.
Okay. So I've got my item in here. I've had my auction. Hopefully I've reached my reserve, but generally speaking, we'll let the market tell the seller what the price might be.
Yeah, we try and discourage reserves unless it's an item, $3,000 or $4,000 or higher. But mostly we don't have reserves.
So just on that, if my item is of a reasonable value, and you said 3,000 to 4,000, that's probably a good benchmark to where you start to take a bit more serious contemplation of that item being sold. Is that fair?
We try and discourage reserves, yeah, because we've got enough customers in the niche in which we've got items that the market price is the market price. So if somebody's got a reserve, it's almost superfluous in a way, in that it will reach its market price. So the person either wants to sell it at the market price, or they're not serious about selling it. Yeah. So, and I don't say that disrespectfully to any of our customers, but sometimes a reserve will be too high and we just won't consign it.
Yeah. Okay. So if the customer's unrealistic in their approach to everything, you'll try and sort of angle them in a way and sort of work with them on getting their expectations around what they can achieve for them.
That's right. And if it, for example, does not meet the reserve, the customers most often is watching the auction anyway. We're happy to try and sell it again, but with a lower or no reserve. Having said that, our clearance rates is at any given auction above 95%.
That's pretty strong. And the market's telling you that, right?
That's right. So some examples at the Bulleye parts auction, out of 291 lots, about 10 lots were passed in. What's that? Less than 3% were passed in. At the rail auction, the 2-day rail auction we had about a month ago now, there was 955 lots. I think 7 were passed in. So the pass-in rate is extremely low, and that's because we get good quality products in that we now our customer base want, and we market it well, and that's pretty much it.
Okay. So the auction's happened, and I've got my $100 for a product or what I put in my trash. You know what I mean?
No, you keep saying trash there. I got to counter that. Yeah.
And essentially, you'll take a commission from that and pay me once the exchange settles, and I'll get my money fairly quickly.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Yeah. And from that, your range, I understand, is about between 10 and 12%, depending on 12.5%, depending on what I'm selling.
Correct. For the vendor, it can be higher if it's a one-off or a problematic item which is hard to collect or hard to catalogue.
What you're selling? Yeah. But more the point is, I've had it around the house. I haven't really done a lot with it, and I want to get rid of it. And for the sake of 10%, you've done all the hard work and have sold it for me.
Yeah, so the vendor fee is by negotiation. And again, that depends on the product. But yeah, we do all the work. But again, the thing that differentiates us is we're very selective on what we sell, because we've got a very niche clientele, and we only want to put up what we know sells. So that's very, very different to the vast majority of auction houses, unless you go to somewhere like Christie's or whatever.
Okay. So I'm a buyer, and I bought my bit of rail paraphernalia.
Yeah.
And I'm not a museum, and I want to put it in my backyard.
Yeah.
What happens from there? And I live in you're currently in New South Wales and Hornsby.
Yeah.
To be specific. How do you get me my product to Victoria, and how does that process go?
Oh, actually, so yeah, that's another big differentiator between us and most auction houses, and particularly in the niche categories, is we're happy to get the product to wherever you are. So I mentioned earlier that we sell a lot of stuff around Australia, but we also send a lot of stuff overseas, particularly with the motorcycle auctions and with speedway auctions. So you'd think, well, if we're going to sell Harley Davidson and Indian motorcycles or Jap speedway bikes, that they'd be going here in Australia or maybe to America. But we sell a lot of motorcycles to guys in Poland, Sweden, the UK, France, Germany, all over the place. But interestingly or not, they don't really go to America. They're normally going over to Europe. We send stuff to South America. It's amazing the distance some of this stuff travels. With the railway stuff, again, we're different to a lot of the competitors in that we will ship something to somebody. When I say ship, it actually doesn't go by ship. We work in with a lot of couriers who have got capability to do either top loads, if it's a fragile item, which top load meaning it actually goes on the top of the load so it can be protected from damage or pressure in a box. And we've got different couriers who work in different areas and different carriers that go to different areas. So for example, with small items that are quite robust, we generally try and use Australia Post, but Australia Post in certain parts of this state use subcontractors who we know not to send them to those areas because the items get banged around. So it's very nuanced on how I can't really give you a straight answer. It's just from experience on using the best carrier or shipper, depending what the product is and where it's going to go.
But I bought a motorbike. I'm sitting in France. I've just won my auction.
Yeah.
So you will ship it to me in France, that motorbike?
Yeah, no problem. So some of those bikes up there, which is they're called speedway bikes, those thin ones. They normally go to Europe because the speedway industry is bigger in Europe than it is in Australia now. It's not so much interest on speedway in Australia, it's more European interest now. So a lot of those go and they get packed into a wooden crate and strapped in and then shipped.
And then shipped?
Yeah.
Okay. And I dare say everyone worries about the duties and taxes at the other end anyway, so because it's been export for Australia, you don't need to worry about GST as well.
That's right, but there are certain things that we've got to make sure we are allowed to sell it. If you've got a culturally significant item, which is very rare for this auction house, we're not allowed to send it. So, yeah, we've actually got something in the current auction which may fall into that category.
So you could have your challenging auction items, which, given the cost significant, you're not allowed to even sell it at all.
No, we're not allowed to export it. Yes.
You're not allowed to export it. Remaining. Right.
So I've just put something in front of Simon that was awarded to Australia's first Labor Prime Minister. He was Prime Minister in the early part of last century, and he was the founder of Ampol and also the president of NRMA for like 15 years. That may not be able to leave Australia, literally.
So I'm looking at an NRMA badge, which looks like an emblem from a Rolls Royce. That's very well done, and clearly supposed to go on the front of the car. But that would have a cultural significance more likely for Australia.
Potentially, because it's on a badge number 1. I don't know for sure, but a few people who have reached out to me from museums have suggested that could be the case on that specific item.
And would that buyer generally be a museum because of the type of product it is?
I'm not sure. There's actually a wealthy client of ours, and he buys a lot of stuff like that. So it may go into his collection. I'm not sure if he's aware of this particular item, but that's an exceptional piece, that thing. So it's NRMA on a badge number 1, like number 1. It's equivalent to a number plate being the number 1. It's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So cool. I mean, I dare say you're going to see items which are salivating here. Enough of, like, you're going to have items in here that you're going to want to keep and buy yourself.
The fellow that I bought this business off, Keith Levy, such a cool guy. He said to me, don't get stuck into buying any of the stuff in the auctions, because once you go down that rabbit hole, you never stop and you won't be able to move in here. So I do bid on items occasionally. An example is at the last rail auction, I bought 2 signs, and they're going to go up on the wall because I want to show support for our great rail customers and the railways in general. And I've done that by buying 2 signs, and they'll be up on the wall.
It's not happened a lot. By the fact that you haven't bought anything else in the time you've been here. Because there's so many cool things. Like there's traffic lights, there's, oh my gosh, there's steam trains.
Actually, I did buy a steam train at that auction as well, a little model steam train. And it's about 6 foot long, and it's currently being restored. So, and that's going to be a display on the wall. So it's a functioning model steam train, and yeah, you can put coal in there or oil. Actually, no, it's going to run on coal, this one. It's just fabulous. It's about as long as this table.
Wow. Yeah,
and it's about
for the people out there that are buying, and I'm sort of taking my step off. Well, I'm taking the liberty of asking a question I haven't sort of talked to you about. Is there any warranties or how do you vouch for the goods that you've got, that they're not stolen or rebirthed or someone's done the naughty? How are you vending yourself?
Yeah, so that's an interesting question. In the collector groups, just about everybody knows everybody. And if a person is selling known stolen items, we just don't deal with them. Also, the auction system we use, which is called High Bid, we are linked in with many other auction houses that also use High Bid. And there's a way in which if a customer is really, really dodgy, the auction house can flag that person in the High Bid system, and that puts a flag to all the other auction houses as well. And that's a really, really good system. It sounds like I'm promoting it. I'm not trying to promote that system, but it's a way that the auction houses can communicate with each other if a vendor is a bit shady. And we certainly adhere to that. And we have in our T's and C's that the vendor warrants that they're their items and it's their items to sell. So they're the owner of the items and that they warrant that they can sell the item.
So you're signing a declaration. You own it.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, given that it's second hand as well, the only real place for the database, I assume, if anything's going to get arrived, would be if someone's taken it from someone else's possession and it hasn't just been stolen.
Yeah, that could be the case. I know when I was learning the ropes from Keith, earlier this year, he did say in a circumstance where somebody thinks that something is stolen, we suggest that they go to the police. So like if something's sitting here and it's stolen, so there has been occasion since 2017 where a prospective customer said, oh, that came from here or that came from that. And Keith has suggested that they go to the police and make a complaint because we don't know the provenance of items before they're physically here other than the representations that are given to us. And certainly we want to work with the police if anything's stolen because we don't want that sort of stuff here.
Oh, of course. So, given that you schedule an auction and you're going to put pictures up prior to that auction going ahead anyway, and there's going to be obviously a termination date from the auction. I dare say if there's anything that's a bit odd, you get a call or someone might ask you some questions saying, well, I recognise this or an inquiry.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's thousands of items on the items. And as I may have touched on earlier, most of the items we sell are very specific to our customer base. And I would describe a good portion of our customer base as experts in the items that they're looking at. So they know oftentimes, all the specifics to do with that product, where it was manufactured, what year it was made in, what are the constituents of it, how it's used, what its value is, and so on and so forth.
So they're pretty knowledgeable sellers. You're not getting very, very often a seller who has that certain idea about what they're giving you. Sometimes
we have a seller that's not sure, but it's most times our purchasers are very clued in with what they're buying. We don't have too many opportunistic purchases that just come our way, but we're looking to broaden the customer base outside of the collector and museum group.
Now, a bit of an elephant in the room, and given my background, you've mentioned to me that there's been a few times over the last few months when you're working that you've got clientele who are unsure about the tax aspect of what they're doing, and if they're potentially going to be taxed on a sale. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Some people have got collections that they may have accumulated privately, personally, over their lifetime or through a relative that are literally worth millions of dollars. Millions.
Just for everyone out there, I'll give we've created a bit of a cheat sheet for the Manshed auctions that we give to Jason today. And if you do have inquiries on that, it is quite a specific area around the Tax Act, and it's got to do with capital gains tax. But we'll certainly allow Jason to have this information and pass it on to you. And more specifically, if you do have a bit of a nagging inquiry, please feel free to reach out to Jason's Manshed or go and see your advisor, because I think our research and our understanding of the Act and the way the tax office interacts with the rights of the Manshed is not punitive, and I think you'll find the outcomes will be quite good. Jason, will allow, we'll give you that sheet so you can give it to people when they come and go.
Thank you for that.
Not a problem. So in terms of the Manshed itself, how do we find you, and how's the best place to watch what you're doing and keep an eye on your auction?
Yeah, so a Google search for Manshed auctions will bring up the website, or just type in manshedauctions.com.au.
And tell me, is there a regularity to these auctions, or do you have a seasonal Or you do it every month. You mentioned you did up to 16 last year.
Yeah, that's right. So the Manshed Collectibles is our general recurring one. So that's the one that best describes our product category, which is the enamel signs, the petrol annealia, the garage annealia, the pinballs, the models, and so forth. So that's a auction which happens every month or so. And then we have the one-off auctions like the rail, which is 4 times a year, the motorcycle auction, which is a couple of times a year as well.
All right. And all that will be on the Manshed website. You can just get an idea of what the upcoming options are and if you're
That's right.
something specific.
So, yeah. So the upcoming auctions that we have is on the website on the front page. We're shortly to add the larger rail auctions that are going to be later this year. And we'll be filling out that date schedule in the not too distant future.
And there'll be pictures there, and I can just get on, have a look at an upcoming auction and keep an eye out for anything that I might be interested in.
Yeah, that's right. So the auctions right now, for example, is the 2nd of September and the 24th of September. And they're just our regular Manshed Collectibles auctions.
Okay. Well, Jason, it's been a fascinating and look into your business. And my golly gosh, there's so many toys here. I don't think I'd ever do any work. But... I wish you all the best in the Manshed auctions and I hope that great white shark up there could find a home. It looks like a light, but it's interesting. It's very real.
Yeah, you might see them when you're out diving, do you?
Yeah, no, I don't like to see those when I'm diving.
Right, okay.
But anyway, all the best and thank you for taking the time to talk to us on NavTalk and Business in the Spotlight.
Yeah, I'd just like to say a big shout out and thank you to all of the team at Nav Wealth who have been very great in assisting on this business, but also in earlier businesses. And I'd like to speak and thank very much the values that the Nav team have got. It's been very, I think you're a great bunch of guys and girls. So thank you very much for that.
Appreciate that, Jason. And thank you for your time today. Wish you all the best.
Thank you for listening to NavTalk. If you'd like to catch up on other episodes from this series or previous, head to our NavWealth website. Until next time.